Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to Reviving the Global Heart online practice, February the 23rd of the year 2021. And next week, Joe Weston will be back. He will actually not be back in the States, but he'll be back online. So this period of guest hosting has come to a close, but I'm sure there will be more opportunities in the future. Joe sends his regards, by the way, and thanks all of you for continuing to weave this golden thread. Reviving the global heart. So we've been doing this practice in some form for about 3 years now, and it is both a meditation, a discussion, and talking about what does it take for us to live into a state of interconnectedness, not just think about interconnectedness, but live in that state where our hearts come alive, where we recognize the connection to ourselves, each other, our surroundings, and all beings. And we are very lucky to have a guest with us today who, for the period that I've known her, and I believe for much, much longer than that, she does live that interconnectedness. Melanie Goodchild. And I'm going to let Melanie introduce herself and then start our discussion with what does it mean to revive the global heart for her.
Oh, miigwech Todd. So I will introduce myself according to the protocols of my nation, which is Anishinaabe. We're also known as Ojibwe or Chippewa, Saulteaux, Saulteaux in across Turtle Island, and I will say a few words, but I will translate those. So bonjour and dina wamaganaduk. That's greetings to you, all of my relatives. Minno Gijemp, that's good morning, or Minno Gijigad, that's a good day to everyone, wherever you are in your time zones. Nishnabé Kwe Anda, Wamshki Ogichida Kwe is Anung Indigenous cause, Waba Anung Indigenous cause. Those are my spirit names, the names that I'm called by my ancestors. In English, I'm called Melanie, which is half my father's name, Delaney, and my mother's name, Melinda. And they halved it up and spelled it like Melanie, but it's pronounced Melanie. And I am Moosin Dodem, that's my Dodemek, I'm Moose Clan. And I'm here in Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada, which is the traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Three Fires Confederacy people. So they are the traditional stewards of this area, but this is the place of the Thundering Waters. So it is a sacred place for all of our nations that have gathered here. Currently, we have quite a bit of snow, and the falls is not completely frozen, but there's some really beautiful images that you'll see online of the falls. The Animiki, the thunder beings, are the beings that live here, so it's a very sacred place. And this is where I run an organization, a nonprofit called Turtle Island Institute. And we're a think and do tank, but really we're a teaching lodge. And so we practice something called Gichiga Kinuamatawin, and it's the act of great or deep teaching. And what's significant about that is that it's not a noun, it's a verb. And so when we say, we could have said, like teaching lodge, that's a good description of what we do, but really Gechiga Kinuamatawin is the act itself of sitting in circle and where everyone's a student and everyone's a teacher. And so we have a virtual existence now because of COVID-19. We moved all of our land-based and our teachings with the elders online. And so we launched something called Mikinak Wigyam. That means Turtle Lodge. And Mikinak Wigyam is a sacred teaching lodge online. It uses a software platform called Mighty Networks, but it's really a space where we invite people in. It's a invitation only, just because of the need for us to protect the knowledge and teachings that are shared from decontextualization, which tends to happen quite a bit in Western, kind of perspectives on knowledge, is that you possess it somehow, you learn it, you memorize it, you get tested on it, and now you know something. But really, knowledge in the Gichiga Kunomatuin refers more to coming to know, or wisdom in action, or a quest to seek wisdom, as opposed to now I know something. And so those are the teachings that we follow. And so for me, we often talk about heart and head, and the way that we do that is we have medicines and spirit helpers. So I'm the caretaker of the medicine bundle for the teaching lodge, and the two spirit helpers that we have, that I often bring into ceremony when we have ceremony, is a shishiguin, a rattle, and a feather. And they require quite a bit more time than I have here today to give you the adzukin, the traditional story or the legend. But I will tell you that they're both teachings about coexistence and peaceful coexistence. And so often I found when I'm teaching folks about Anishinaabe Gikendasuin, which is our original ways of knowing, or Anishinaabe and Damawin, our wisdoms, there's a tendency to want to find a common frame of reference and then put it into that. And so to fit that, like traditional ecological knowledge, well, our knowledge isn't only ecological, but that's what ecologists find useful, and then put it into that category. We practice relational systems thinking, and it's for me, it's kind of a take on systems thinking, and that's what I study. I'm a PhD candidate in social and ecological sustainability, specifically studying complexity, resilience, sustainability, and systems thinking. And so, from my perspective, relational systems thinking privileges relationships, but not just anthropocentric relationships. So it's really not just about human beings, which I find a lot of work across many different problem domains it tends to have that blind spot, an anthropocentric bias, I call it. And so it's about relationships with the land, with the spirit of knowledge and ideas, with the spirits of the animals, the plants, the water, all of creation. And so maybe I'll finish by saying that for me, the heart and mind connection, the rattle that we have is left. On the left side, it's red for the heart, and on the right side, it's white for the mind. And it was a teaching from our elders that for someone like me who studies and is a scholar and a systems geek, I can get pretty wrapped up in my head in the intellectual, side of things. And the intellectual is a piece of the knowledge bundle, the Minigojawin, we call it, your sacred knowledge bundle. It's an important piece of it, but there's other elements. There's actually 4 elements of a human being, and 4 elements of your knowledge bundle. And that's your spiritual, mental, physical, and emotional. And so mental is kind of the intellect. And, when we shake the rattle, it reminds us to go between heart and mind. And so a lot of spiritual knowledge comes through your heart, but it also comes through your mind. And the spirits are talking to you when you read a book, when you hear a song. And so it can be processed through the intellect. And so we have a medicine wheel teaching, and the elders talk about the spiritual, mental, physical, and emotional as intelligences or frequencies. And so we need to cultivate our capacity to tap into those different frequencies. So how do you tap into your spiritual frequency? But not just your spiritual frequency, that's the relational part of it. It's the spiritual frequency of the human beings around you, but also the ancestors around you, the spirit beings. And the closest I think that Western science has come to exploring this is, theoretical physics, and the physicists like David Bohm, who talked about the quantum potential. Things are always in flux, and there's this energy field. And many other traditions talk about this. They talk about chi in Eastern traditions, and so centering your chi and doing breathing. All of these are processes, and for us, we do a lot of ceremonies. There's quite a few ceremonies that we have and teachings around. My husband, who's Algonquin, is a fire keeper, and there's masculine energy around fire, and then women are the water keepers, and that's a teaching of balance. So you can have both masculine and feminine responsibilities. I like how the Aboriginal people in Australia talk about it. My colleague Tyson Yankamporta, they talk about women's business and men's business. So women's business for us is, the moon, grandmother moon. We call her Nokomis Debik Gizis, and grandfather sun is Nimishomis Gizis, which are Gizis are like the star beings and the star people. Anung are the stars. And so we have masculine and feminine energies, and then we tap into those. And so the balance is beautiful because my husband's a fire keeper, but then I'm a water keeper. And so often our ceremonies will involve water and fire. And that's a little bit of what I wanted to share with you today when Todd invited me to be a guest. I was really happy to meet you and share some of these teachings. And I just kind of threw a lot at you, but that's really, we had a podcast recently where I talked about some of this as well. And these are, I guess, indigenous wisdoms and principles really that can help us as a global community. And the time that we're in was actually prophesized by many nations that we would struggle as human beings to survive in spite of ourselves. Would we destroy this planet and all of the other beings? Or would we make decisions for the continuation and the thriving of all life on this planet? And that's the time that we're in. It's called the seventh fire, and it's rekindling or lighting the eighth fire prophecy. And so the prophecy is that all human beings from all four corners, all directions, all nations would come together and kind of like elevate our state of consciousness into a level of maturity that we could handle the complexity of the world. We tend to simplify it and come up with categories and mental models that make it easy for us to understand, instead of really understanding how nuanced the world is, and especially the spiritual and metaphysical realm. So, Todd, I'm not sure how we have time, but I wanted to share some of that.
Melanie, Miigwech, that was very generous. And I'm sure people have questions, but we're just going to address one that Tammy put in before we meditate together with Tori, and then we'll move back into a discussion. So you mentioned the word medicines, and that has a different meaning that you're speaking than us going to the pharmacy and fulfilling a prescription. So talk to us a little bit about medicines.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah. So when I refer to medicines, we call it mushkiki and mushkikiug in plural. That refers to all of the ways that we petition to the spirit beings and to our helpers, to our ancestors. We petition for assistance to cope with or learn something. And so medicines, mushkiki, come in different forms. And so when I talked about tapping into frequencies, we tap into the frequencies of medicines that can help. And sometimes, and so they're really helpers. I mean, it's quite like a general definition, I guess. And the closest thing in English would be helpers. So all of these helpers, and it could be sacred items like our pawagan, our bundles. We have items in our medicine bundles, but it also includes herbs, different types of medicines that we use from the land, as well as water is a very powerful medicine, and so is laughter. We'll often say laughing is good medicine. So we get together in our ceremonies. People think we're quite serious, but at our most sort of, even our saddest ceremonies, our traditional burials, there's lots of laughter, because laughter is good medicine. It makes people feel good. So that's the more, I think, accurate translation of mushkiki is helpers.
Let's all take a breath together. Thank you, Melanie, and please stick around so we can have a discussion. Tori, would you lead us in the practice?
I would love to. Thank you so much, Melanie. It feels good to hear and feel into the perspective of your native land and people and interconnectedness. It feels sacred and important in this time and all times, but definitely this time. So with that, let's everyone close your eyes if that feels safe for you. If not, just let your eyes be soft and downward. And listening to the sound of the bell. Allowing that sound to just signify going into our formal practice of meditation together, knowing that in all time zones, in this present moment, we are in sacred space, in sacred circle together, despite our geographical distance. Taking a moment today to, as in your mind's eye, noticing and directing your energy and welcoming the direction of the west, the element of water, welcoming our sweet emotions, the rivers, the lakes, the oceans, the streams, the rain, the blood in our veins, the tears in our eyes. Welcoming the direction of the west. Welcoming the direction of the north, of stillness, element of earth, holding us all equally, our physical bodies that we get to embody this sacredness. Welcoming the direction of the north. Bringing in and welcoming the direction of the east, element of air, the winds of change, our breath, our life-giving breath we have with us at any moment. Welcoming, thanking the direction of the east. And welcoming the direction of the south, the element of fire. The life-giving sun brings life, warmth, and our inner fire. Welcoming the direction of the south. So feeling all of those directions and allowing those directions to give us a better place and space and time in this moment as we connect with our inward direction and feel our contact point in this moment. The place that our seat, our feet are in contact with the floor or the surface below us, and ultimately the earth. Being supported in this moment by this life-giving planet that provides everything. Feeling the powerful yet invisible gift of gravity. Allowing your body to soften to gravity. Your spine is gently lengthened, chin gently tucked, just opening the back of the neck slightly. This allows energy to move more freely through our system. While our shoulders are soft to gravity, our jaw is relaxed, our belly is soft. Bringing your awareness to your center. That place about 3 finger widths below your navel, 1/3 of the way into your body. From that place, taking a deep breath in through your nose and slowly out through your mouth. From your center, becoming aware of your physical body in this moment. What are you aware of in your physical body? Sensation, temperature, pressure. From your center, becoming aware of your emotional body. What emotions are present for you in this moment? They're all welcome. We're simply deepening our level of listening. And from your center, becoming aware of your mental body, of your thoughts. How are your thoughts right now? Expansive, open? Are they more racing and distracting or tight? Again, without judgment. And from your center and bringing awareness now to your heart, to that space in the middle of your chest. This palpable, measurable, energetic field surrounding our heart space. From where deeper compassion lies, understanding, courage. And from your center and from your heart, becoming aware of that part of you that connects to something larger than yourself. Noticing that connection. That could be something spiritual for you. It could be your highest values. It could be nature, humanity. How connected do you feel from your center and from your heart to something larger than yourself in this moment? And having cultivated a deeper awareness of yourself in this moment from your center and from your heart, taking a deep breath in through your nose and slowly out through your mouth. And from your center and from your heart, now becoming aware of your surroundings. Becoming aware of what's behind you, below you, above you. Perhaps even expanding that awareness outside the structure that you're sitting in the moment. From your center and your heart, taking a deep breath in, slowly exhaling. And from your center and from your heart, now connecting to the other beings on this call in this moment. From your center and your heart, connecting to the center and the hearts of the others in this sacred circle. Maybe asking yourself the question in this moment, how courageous do I feel to have an impact on another human being from my center and my heart? How courageous do I feel to be impacted? Remembering your breath, taking a deep breath in through your nose, slowly out through your mouth. Continuing to expand our awareness, and now becoming aware of all beings in this moment, and starting with beings that aren't human. So welcoming and connecting with and becoming aware of the four-legged beings, the winged ones, the creepy crawlers, the fishes in the seas, lakes, the plant people and medicines, the clouds, the rainbows. From your heart and your center, connecting with all the other beings. Taking a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. As we feel our connection with the other beings, knowing that we're part of that nature. It's a part. And from your center and from your heart now, connecting with other human beings, expanding our awareness to all humans, beginning with those that we would consider to be loved ones. From your center and from your heart, connecting with those beings that you would consider to be loved ones. From your center and from your heart now, becoming aware of those and connecting with those that you would consider to be strangers. It's a huge number, probably in the billions. Maybe you see groups of people or people around the globe, young people, old people, people of different nationality, culture, race. Taking a deep breath in through your nose from your belly and your heart. Inhale. Exhale slowly. From your center and from your heart, now connecting with those that you would consider to be adversaries. Again, maybe you see faces or groups of people. Connecting from your center and your heart to those that you would consider to be adversaries. From your center and from your heart, coming back, connecting with the other people on this, in this specific sacred circle in this moment. Taking all the other beings with you in your heart, expanding your capacity of your heart to hold all beings. Taking a deep breath in. Exhale slowly as we take all human beings into our heart and stay connected with those on the call in this moment. Imagining us in sacred circle. From your center and from your heart, coming back to your surroundings, your awareness of your surroundings. Notice if that's changed from when we started. Simply taking an assessment. And coming back to your within. Feeling the directions holding us in space and time, the earth underneath you, your awareness of your center and your heart. And taking one last deep breath in together, deep down into your belly, expanding through your belly, in through your nose, slowly out through your mouth. Listening to the sound of the bell, allowing the bell to bring you back. Allowing your eyes to gently flutter open. Moving your body, stretching your body, looking around your space for a moment. Wonderful. Welcome back.
Thank you, Tori.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a handful of minutes left for responses, perhaps to the practice, responses to Melanie's generous sharing.
Melanie, I loved what you said about the time we're in right now. Sort of comforting on some level, like it could have been a time of like total destruction and horror, you know? And so I just am curious, like, is this time, like, this is sort of, I feel like this is like a weird linear question, but like, how do you know? And is this like is this the time we'll be in for our whole lives, or is it much longer, or is it shorter? And what's before and what's after? You don't have to say all that, but just give me a little more on that, please.
Yes, for sure. So one of the sources of knowledge and wisdom, one of the most important sources, I guess, in many indigenous traditions, from what I've studied, including my own, um, is the spiritual knowledge that comes through dreams and visions and certain ceremonies. And there are people who are gifted to access those. And so many of our tribal communities have what we call prophecies. I guess that's what we would call them in English. And so in this territory, for example, the Haudenosaunee people, who are the Mohawk people, have Peacemaker and the Code of Handsome Lake, they call it, which were prophecies. And they foretold of certain times, even the times when human beings would fly, which when those prophecies were given sounded impossible. And then, someone invented a plane, and we've all seen human beings fly. So it was different than we, took flight. And so the prophecies, like there was a Hopi prophecy about needing to shift our course as human beings. And Grandfather Thomas Bianca spoke to the House of Micah, which is the United Nations, in 1992. And so they prophesized the House of Micah, the Hopi people, as a place where world nations would come together to discuss their issues and solve problems at peace instead of at war. And so there was a prophecy of what we now know as the United Nations. And so the seventh fire prophecy of the Anishinaabe is that we would go through this really difficult time, which many feel we're still in, where we're making the decision to continue life on Mother Earth or not, for us and all beings. But the rekindling of the eighth fire is, processes like this, where different nations would come together with different ways of knowing, and that we would share. And it was also prophesized in something called the Two-Row Wampum Belt, where there would be two canoes sharing the river of life together. And so when you look at the teachings of that treaty, which is in this area as well, it was about when the first Dutch merchants met with the Iroquois, the Haudenosaunee people. But the teaching there is that we share the river of life together, and that we are in our separate vessels, and that we would teach each other. We wouldn't interfere or oppress each other, that there would be equal but differentiated ways of seeing the world. And that's where we're trying to get to now as humanity. We're trying to get to that place of maturity and consciousness where we don't see alternative worldviews and different cosmologies and epistemologies as threatening. Instead, we see them and welcome them as gifts. And that's what the prophecy foretold. And the fact that they're coming true in our lifetime is actually quite shocking and amazing to a lot of elders. They thought that was thousands of years in the future. And we're seeing, I think, because of the Anthropocene, as the scientists call it, because of the crisis we're in, this is one of the deepest crises we have faced in terms of climate change, but even just in terms of how we treat each other and the earth as a time of crisis. So it is quite hopeful. And I often share with people that when they are elevating consciousness and thinking about reconnecting to the sacred feminine, to Mother Earth, that is the fulfillment of prophecy, and a very important work.
Thank you.
Miigwech, thank you.
I have a question. First of all, there's a lot of information, and I was very intrigued or curious about the I forget the exact wording, the feminine and masculine chores, and how that applies nowadays to people who, with gender fluidity. But then after actually my more, I guess, pressing question is a curiosity about how do you feel about non-native or non-indigenous people using elements of native rituals in their ritual, because a lot of times it's been seen very critical as cultural appropriation, like calling in the four direction or using sage or any of these principles and practices. So I'm just curious of what your thoughts are on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've talked to the elders about appropriation, and that is not actually one of their deepest concerns, because in fact, we've joked and laughed about, really wanting people to appropriate certain ideas and relationships and teachings, and that what they've said to me is that really when we share the protocols of what we're sharing. And so decontextualization of the knowledge is a bit of a risk, but the teachings of the principles, like opening your heart and shifting consciousness, those are things that we would like people to continue to learn about. And so if you're taught a specific ceremony, you're also taught the protocols, and it's really between you and your higher power or your universe, however you relate to a creator. So our ceremonies are so multi-layered that it would be hard to learn everything you need to know in a very short time. And so if you've gone to sun dances, for example, or to lodge ceremonies, you will have learned that it's not an appropriate thing to go and run your own sweat lodge. So the people who are running sweat lodges shouldn't be running sweat lodges. If they were given the protocol that they could, then there's a whole profound teaching behind that people in relationship to that ceremony would know. So it's kind of, it's a way to say that I think it's about respect. And if it feels like in your gut instinct, like I shouldn't be doing this, it's about respect and attribution. So I share, for example, about different nations like the Haudenosaunee, because the elders have sat down with me, Mohawk elders, and taught me their prophecies and taught me things. And then the way I relate it is not that I'm Haudenosaunee, I'm Anishinaabe, but I'm taking their teachings because of the area I live in and because they complement, my culture. But I've also spent my life growing up in my culture, which I'm very fortunate, to have that level of knowledge. And I'm just learning. I continue to learn how to be someone who keeps medicine. So that's what they say. It's not so much about appropriation, which there is a risk. I think it's more about teaching people respect, and that's how they engage with that knowledge. Because if they disrespect that knowledge by doing something inappropriate, then that's going to come back on them somehow. They're just going to not, it's like, I guess, karma, you could say. And so that's how the elders, that's why they're so generous. And they will not share things that they're not supposed to. If there are certain teachings that are for certain medicine societies or clans, and you're only supposed to have knowledge of that if you're that clan, then they won't share it in an inappropriate way either. Yeah. So thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. The Reviving the Global Heart practice is something that is an outgrowth of the Fierce Civility Project. And the Fierce Civility Project, we're helping build capacity for more bridges to be built. And you are such a bridge builder, and so generous with what you share and offer. So thank you. And I'm going to ask Tori if she can offer a dedication.
Wonderful. Bringing our hands to heart center, allowing your eyes to close again, and dedicating these practices and this interconnectedness to strengthen our own knowledge and wisdom so that we may have a more beneficial impact in our connections with all beings. In service, in respect, in honor. Deep bow.
Thank you, everyone. This recording will be available on YouTube. If you have questions, you can contact Joe or contact me, and come back next week and welcome Joe back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thanks so
Thank
much,
you.
Melanie.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.